What is happening, everybody? I hope you're all well, and welcome back to Dragon Age 2. Now, full disclosure, this is going to be the start of the Codex series. This is not a main episode of the Let's Play. This is going to be a lore reading slash discussion episode, so if that's not something you're interested in, go ahead and click away now and wait for a main episode of the Let's Play. If that is something you're interested in, then let's dive into the lore and get a little nerdy about all this. So, first up we have Hurlock. Taller than their Genlock cousins, the Hurlock are roughly of human size, but are possessed of considerable strength and constitution. The shock troop of the Darkspawn, a single berserking Hurlock can often be a match for numerous opponents at once. They are known to adorn themselves with roughly carved tattoos to keep track of their kills and deeds, though it is unknown whether or not there is a uniform standard to these markings. Mabari War Hound. Dogs are an essential part of Ferelden culture, and no dog is more prized than the Mabari. The breed is as old as myth, said to have been bred from the wolves who served Dane. Prized for their intelligence and loyalty, these dogs are more than mere weapons or status symbols. The hounds choose their masters, and pair with them for life. To be the master of a Mabari anywhere in Ferelden is to be recognized instantly as a person of worth. The Mabari are an essential part of Ferelden military strategy. Trained hounds can easily pull knights from horseback or break lines of pikemen, and the sight and sound of a wave of war dogs howling and snarling has been known to cause panic among even the most hardened infantry soldiers. Ogre. Towering over their darkspawn kin, the massive ogres are a rare sight on the battlefield. Traditionally, they only appear during a blight, but some records claim that ogres have been spotted in the deep roads hunting alone or in small groups. At least one report by the Grey Wardens claims that an ogre was spotted alone in the Korcari Wilds in 919 Dragon, though it was weakened and easily dispatched. Up to 100 of these creatures can accompany a darkspawn horde at any one time during a blight, often using their great strength to burst through fortifications and demolish the front lines of the opposing army. Kinda sounds like the ogre they spotted here well before the blight. Probably got into a fight with other ogres and kind of just wandered out there injured. Quickly cleaned up. They use brute force to charge their enemies like bulls, slam the ground with their fists to shake enemies off their feet, and hurl giant rocks into the face of oncoming foes. Melee can be difficult against a giant that snatches a warrior up in one hand, crushing the life out of him or beating him into oblivion with the other hand. The nimble can try to wiggle his way free, or an ally can attempt an array of stunning blows on an ogre to free the comrade in danger. Grey Warden lore urges caution when slaying an ogre. Unless it is ensured that they have received a major wound to the head or the heart, it is possible that they are lying dormant and will regenerate to full health within a matter of minutes. During a blight, most Grey Wardens recommend burning all Darkspawn to ashes, dead ogres in particular. I still do appreciate the way that the codexes in these games, they are written in such a way that they give you gameplay hints during the lore. So like obviously this is telling you that if you're up in their face as a warrior, you can get snatched up and crushed, and the way to save that is either passing checks to wiggle free, or allies can stun the ogre and he'll drop you. It literally tells you how to play the game inside the universe lore. I do appreciate that quite a lot, actually. Yeah, this is where things get interesting, because we haven't read about this stuff yet. This is new to Dragon Age 2. The City of Kirkwall. Kirkwall once lived on the edge of the Tevinter Imperium, and was home to nearly 1 million slaves. Stolen from elven lands or shipped from across the sea, all slaves fed the Imperium's unquenchable thirst for expansion. They worked in massive quarries and sweltering foundries that produced stone and steel for the Empire. The city's complicated past is not easy to forget, history having earmarked many corners of the stone city. A ship approaching the harbor spots the city's namesake, an imposing black wall. It is visible for miles, and carved into the cliffside are a pantheon of vile guardians representing the old gods. Over the years, the Chantry has effaced many of these profane sentinels, but it will take many more years to erase them all. Also carved into the cliff is a channel that permits ships into the city's interior. Flanking the channel are 2 massive bronze statues, the twins of Kirkwall. The statues have a practical use. Kirkwall sits next to the narrowest point of the waking sea, and a massive chain net can be erected between the statues and the lighthouse, closing off the only narrow, navigable lane. This stranglehold on sea traffic is jealously guarded by the ever-changing rulers of the city as the net trolls taxes, tolls, and extortions in from the sea. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetive. So Kirkwall is an old slave outpost of the Tvinter Imperium, and so that's going to set up the tone of things we're going to see when we go into Kirkwall. It's going to be very oppressive, very tight and narrow and dulled down. It's meant to make you feel like a prisoner, because that's what this was. It was a prison city, basically. It was an internment camp. It's basically what Kirkwall as its entirety is. And I really do think they captured that in the art style, which we're about to get into next episode. The Korcari Wilds. It is said that in the midst of the Black Age, when werewolves stalked the lands of Ferelden in numbers that kept every farmholder indoors and a hound on every doorstep, a powerful Arl of the Alamari peoples stood and declared that he would put an end to the threat. His Arlings stood on the border of the dark forest on the southern border of the Ferelden Valley, and he claimed that the werewolves used the forest to launch their midnight assaults on humanity. For 20 years, this Arl led an army of warriors and hounds deep into the forest. In his hunt for the werewolves, he slew not only every wolf he came upon, but also every member of the chastened wilder folk. Any one of them, he said, could harbor a demon inside, and thus be a werewolf in disguise. For 20 years, the forest rang with screams, and the rivers ran red. The tales say that an old chastened woman found her sons all dead at the Arl's blades. She pulled one of those very blades from one son's heart and plunged it into her own chest, cursing the Arl's name as she did so. Where her blood touched the ground, a mist began to rise. It spread and spread until it was everywhere in the forest. The Arl's army became lost, and it is said that they died there. Others say they wander still. The ruins of his Arlings stand to this day, filled with the ghosts of women waiting eternally for their husbands to return. The forest of the legend is, of course, the Korcari Wilds. There are as many legends about the great southern forest as there are shadows, or so the saying goes. The chastened wilder folk have made their home there since mankind first came to these lands, and the wildlands spread as far into the south as anyone has ever ventured. Beyond the mists are vast tracts of snow, white-capped mountains, and entire fields of ice. It is a land too cold for mankind to survive, yet the chastened eke out an existence even there. And they tell of horrors beyond the wilds that the lowland folk could not begin to comprehend. Sounds like the Northern War from Game of Thrones. To most, Ferelden simply ends with the Korcari Wilds. There is nothing beyond. The Wilds is a land of great trees, wet marshes, and dangerous monsters. What more need be said? From Land of the Wilders by Mother A-List, Chantry Scholar, 918 Dragon. And now we have a lore tab, which we did not used to have. This is all broke up a little differently now, so let's see what they have down in the lore tab. An honest answer regarding apostates. A mage who does not receive the teachings of the circle and who does not have the words of Andraste in her heart is an apostate and a danger to us all. Without the guidance of the holy chantry, a mage may foolishly dabble in the darker arts, blood magic, or demon summoning, thus becoming maleficarum, and a mage's mind will ever be a doorway to spirits of the Fade. Without proper instruction, this doorway remains open and unsecured. If a demon should come through this doorway and possess a mage, an abomination is created. Abominations know only madness. They cannot be reasoned with, and will slaughter man, woman, and child without thought. Whole cities have fallen to these creatures. Thousands have died at their hands. The Chantry and her Templars have a duty to ensure that this does not happen. If I knew a better way to deal with magic, I would seize upon it immediately. You say we should let the mages guard themselves. I tell you that this is no solution. Look at the Tevinter Imperium. Their magisters do not know restraint. Without Chantry oversight, the magisters abuse their power. Those without magic are trampled underfoot and forced to serve. Slaves are slaughtered by the hundreds to feed the Magister's hunger for power. Even some mages are not spared. For in mages, as in all humans, there exists a spectrum. On one end, the very powerful. On the other, those that can barely light a candle. The Empire cares only for the strongest, and those who do not compare favorably are thrown to the wolves. And this is why I had such a big problem with the Tevinter Imperium and Dragon Age the Veilguard. This is literally why, right? It says right here that they don't know restraint. They abuse their power. That without magic are trampled, slaves are slaughtered by the hundreds to feed the Magister's hunger for power. Like, Tevinter is supposed to just use people for double D batteries, and of course in the Veilguard they were nice little rebellious folk that needed assistance to be saved from the Venatori, but that's not... The Venatori doesn't even exist at this point, and they're doing this shit. So that's not how that works. There was a big whitewashing attempt for Tevinter, unfortunately. Which really put me off the whole time I was playing in Rathus in the Veilguard. Imagine your children growing up in such a world. If a mage asked it of you, you would have to give him your daughter, not knowing what his plans for her might be. You could not resist him, and neither could she. Without our Templars, and without the Circle, the common man would have no defense against magic. We must deny the mages certain freedoms for the common good. I wish there was another way. I tell the apprentices this is a test of their faith, that it is the will of the Maker. Many understand that we do what we do for their own good. Excerpt of a letter from Grand Cleric Francesco of Starkhaven to Lord Guthrie Abols. And I actually agree with this for the most part, that it's for the common good. Tevinter is a glowing example, but when you consider that one abomination can end an entire village, slaughter hundreds, maybe thousands of people. I mean, shit, there's codexes of one abomination taking out a whole unit of Templars and then just slaughtering the entire city before they even got there. So, abominations are not to be trifled with, and when you consider an untrained mage, maybe they get bullied, demon whispering in their ear, all of a sudden they say fuck it because they don't understand the ramifications because they haven't been trained, and then 500 people in the city are dead, a whole list of Templars. And then that doesn't even account for just the straight up scumbags. They would just immediately use blood magic because they're scum. You know, give me your daughter. We're going to go on a vacation together and you're going to sit here and dance till your feet bleed. Stuff like that. I think mages do need to be... The circle needs to exist, I think. I'm very pro circle. Now, some circles, obviously there's abuses of power going on in there, but the solution is to fix those specific circles, not to abolish the whole structure. Like, look at Ferelden's circle. Ferelden's circle is pretty good. There's not many abuses there. They're in a pretty good place. They get to leave whenever they become a full mage. Like Wynn, she's traveled the world, so... I don't think we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we just fix the ones that have abuses. Darkspawn. Those who had sought to claim heaven by violence destroyed it. What was golden and pure turned black. Those who had once been mage lords, the brighter of their age, were no longer men, but monsters. Therides 12:1. Sin was the midwife that ushered the Darkspawn into this world. The Magisters fell from the Golden City, and their fate encompassed all our worlds, but they were not alone. No one knows where the Darkspawn come from. A dark mockery of men. In the darkest places they thrive, growing in numbers as a plague of locusts will. In raids, they will often take captives, dragging their victims alive into the deep roads, but most evidence suggests that these are eaten. Like spiders, it seems Darkspawn prefer their food still breathing. Perhaps they are simply spawned by the darkness. Certainly, we know that evil has no trouble perpetuating itself. Well, we know how Darkspawn are made, and we know that they don't take captives for food. The last blight was in the Age of Towers, striking once again at the heart of Tevinter, spreading south into Orlais, and east into the Free Marches. The plague spread as far as Ferelden, but the withering and twisting of the land stopped well beyond our borders. Here, Darkspawn have never been more than the stuff of legends. In the northern lands, however, particularly Tevinter and the Anderfels, they say Darkspawn haunt the hinterlands, preying on outlying farmers and isolated villages, a constant threat. From Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. It's interesting that certain parts of the world, it's been, even in the time between blights, people tend to forget they exist and act like wardens aren't necessary. It's it's kind of crazy how you can. I think at this point there's been 4 blights because in Origins that's the 5th. So 4 blights already that almost ended the world, and you're forgetting about that before lucky number 5. It's a little absurd to me, I think. Interesting here too that I remember in Dragon Age Origins, I almost said Darkspawn Origins. In Dragon Age Origins, we talked about how Darkspawn are made and what they do with women to make broodmothers. And I also mentioned that BioWare's tried very hard to run very far away from that. And you already see them doing it here, right? Dragging their victims alive into the deep roads, but most evidence suggests that these are eaten, simply spawned by the darkness. We know that that's not the case, and BioWare knows that too, but they try and run far and fast from that whole thing that they did in Origins. That's too dark fantasy for them, I guess. Alright. Carver Hawke, sub brother. Carver grew up surrounded by magic he couldn't truly understand. He cared deeply for his family, but sometimes felt like the stupidest person in the room. Carver founded in Lotharin, caught between the gifts of his apostate sister Bethany and the growing skill of his more focused sibling Apparition. But even as Carver groused about his lot, he remained dedicated to protecting those he loved. He didn't think twice about sacrificing himself to save his mother during the flight from the Darkspawn, and although Carver struggled to find his way in life, there is gratification in knowing his death had purpose. Flemeth. You are required to do nothing, least of all believe. That's something she said to the wardens. Ages ago, legend says Ban Conobar took to wife a beautiful young woman who harbored a secret talent for magic, Flemeth of Highever, and for a time they lived happily, until the arrival of a young poet, Osin, who captured the lady's heart with his verse. They turned to the Chastened tribes for help, and hid from Conobar's wrath in the wilds, until word came to them that Conobar lay dying. His last wish was to see Flemeth's face one final time. The lovers returned, but it was a trap. Conobar killed Osin, and imprisoned Flemeth in the highest tower of the castle. In grief and rage, Flemeth worked a spell to summon a spirit into this world to wreak vengeance upon her husband. Vengeance she received, but not as she planned. The spirit took possession of her, turning Flemeth into an abomination. A twisted, maddened creature, she slaughtered Conobar and all his men, and fled back into the wilds. For 100 years, Flemeth plotted, stealing men from the Chastened to sire monstrous daughters, horrific things that could kill a man with fear. These Korcari witches led an army of Chastened from the wilds to strike at the Alamori tribes. They were defeated by the hero Cormac, and all the witches burned, so they say. But even now the wilders whisper that Flemeth lives on in the marsh, and she and her daughters steal those men who come too near. Morrigan's mother saved the last Grey Wardens from death at the top of the Tower of Ashal, but just who, or what, Flemeth truly is a mystery. We do know a little more about this from Origins, so, the legend Cormac, it is pretty much explicitly stated by Flemeth and Morrigan that he didn't really exist in this way. There was no army raised, and he never waged war into the wilds. It was actually a civil war, and the convenient nature of that was just to throw on the witches on top of it. Just tack that on top and make it sound like that's why you killing your own people. And then the whole thing with the poet Osin, I'm pretty sure that Conobar had decided to sell Flemeth. They made a deal. They sold Flemeth to Osin because he fell in love. And then I'm pretty sure... Oh, sorry, Osin was the one who sold it to Conobar. And then they reneged on that deal, and instead of paying Osin, he killed him and locked Flemeth in the tower. And then that's when she made the deal, and the rest of what it says there is actually true. Alright, so let's see what Hawke's story is. Hawke. The son of Malcolm Hawke and Leandra Amell, Apparition has lived in many places throughout Ferelden. His father and younger sister, Bethany, were apostate mages. Thus, the family was constantly on the move, avoiding Templar hunters. 10 years ago, the family settled in the village of Lothering, building a home on the outskirts and making a life where they wouldn't forever be on the run. The Oleandra worried constantly that the Templars would one day catch up with them. Malcolm kept his abilities a secret and taught his daughter to do the same. He died 3 years ago, leaving Apparition responsible for the welfare of his mother and younger siblings. When the Blight began, Apparition and Carver quickly enlisted in King Kaelin's regiment. The hordes spilling from the Korcari Wilds meant their home would be quickly overrun if the Darkspawn were not defeated immediately. However, the Battle of Ostagar ended with the betrayal and death of King Kaelin. Apparition and Carver barely escaped the chaos with their lives, and returned to Lothering to get their mother and Bethany out with only moments to spare. So that's the timeline for all this. Right after the Battle of Ostagar fails, Flemeth saves the Wardens. These guys come immediately back to Lothering, just ahead of the Blight that's pursuing them from Ostagar. And then they get themselves out. By that time, Flemeth is done healing us up, because by the time Lothering falls, the Wardens are, I think, like 25% through the story. So they're probably in, like, Redcliffe still, or just after Redcliffe. And then, obviously, the rest is history. Flemeth decides to swoop in and save them, sends them here with an amulet that we still don't know what we're doing with, but that's the journey so far. Alright, that was all of our codexes wrapped up, so that is where we're going to stop this one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, please do check out the Patreon in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you soon with more Dragon Age 2. Take care everybody, have a great day. Peace.